I'm sitting here with three gentlemen who were very instrumental, no pun intended, in my life. Uh, they orchestrated with instruments for me at a time when my career got too busy for me to continue to do my own orchestration. And they were all involved with witnessing as I would compose sometimes in real time against the picture what now we call instant composition. To my left is Mark Waters, who I met very early in his career. Mark came over and played me a piece of music that blew me away. Mark is a distinguished composer, brilliant orchestrator. He's done tons of work for the Walt Disney Company. He has conducted for the Olympics. He's conducted some of the live concert score programs and that are becoming very popular. The other gentleman sitting here, Jonathan Sachs, started off as my personal assistant, and as he loves to remind me, he used to polish my shoes and clean my skylights before he started doing the musical things. And also a wonderful composer, his concert works, and has become the main orchestrator not only for Michael Kamen but Randy Newman. He's done most of Randy's big Pixar movies, and he's just a really wonderful, talented guy. And he actually worked with me at a very critical time in my life where I was dealing with some serious disease issues, and his support during that time was really incredible. And then over here we have Bill Ross, also known as William Ross. And Bill is another incredibly wonderful person and incredibly talented, who is a wonderful composer, has done many major movies, and he's conducted the Oscar telecast several times. He's Barbra Streisand's musical director, and he's one of the most well-respected people in our industry. And it's amazing for me that the fates sent me such wonderful people many years ago. As you probably know, until I went to Poland in 2011, I had no idea that my ability to create in real time was anything unusual. And I recall that when we were working on movies, and time was short, I would have you all at my studio while I was composing, either on the piano or later with the synthesizers, and I'd often play against picture, and every once in a while I would nail a cue on the first take or almost, and occasionally somebody would say, "Gee, that was pretty, that was really cool," and I didn't really think anything of it. So
I think that what you're talking about is, there's a long tradition in music of improvisation. I mean, certainly Bach was known for improvising fugues and fuguing in the verb sense, taking a melody and fugue. I think in your case, you turned on the tape recorder or the sequencer when that time, because we started this pretty much before.
right, so probably at the piano with a cassette.
Exactly, I remember that. And I think our job was to kind of orchestrate it and to tighten up some of the hits where, oh yeah, I reacted to this hit, and can we just slide it up? And,
Sure.
But other than that, a lot of it was pretty much, pretty much fully formed.
I mean, it's one thing to improvise and you pull kernels of, the improvisation, and that's what becomes, after working with it, becomes a score. What was so impressive to me was how, writing a cue, there are a lot of limitations to it. You have timing limitations, you have size and depth, you have emotional limitations, but to be able to improvise within those boundaries and still create something, that came seemingly so spontaneously, was quite, remarkable to me and quite unique. I don't think that's common at all. I can remember watching you. You'd have the video monitor to your left, the tape recorder to your right, and you'd have, instead of any music, like even just the germ of an idea written out, you had the timing notes laid out, and you'd be reading timing notes as if they were music, like, okay, I'm coming up upon 17 seconds, okay, yeah, that's what I'm going to do there. And I was sitting, this was early in my career, and I'd just be sitting like, wow, okay, that's pretty amazing.
I recall starting out in my career that way as well, and the chance to work with you and having the same reaction, like, well, this is a pretty high bar. This is what you have to be able to do to survive in this business. Wow.
And to think
So,
that, I mean, I remember, you would
we
do,
talked about that. Yeah.
5, 6, 7 minutes in a day. I mean, who does that? And you'd be done by 5. I mean, you'd have, some dinner engagement or something, you'd have to go. And I was just, most of us are happy if we get, a good minute or two,
Well, sure, but at that point, I was no longer doing the orchestration. If I was composing and orchestrating, I was not better than 3 minutes a day, like, if that. And Jonathan, I remember you have probably worked with me the longest. But when did you start orchestrating for me? I know I didn't trust you with orchestrating.
It was after I was doing Kamen, but
Really, it was after you.
I think so. Prior to that,
I mean, I thought, well, if he's orchestrating for Michael Kamen, he certainly can orchestrate for me.
yeah, and my whole career started by, besides the shoes and the groceries, is I would do takedown. He would do his stuff.
Right.
And give me a cassette, and I had ear training at, in conservatory, so that I didn't know how well that would serve me.
Before MIDI files.
Yeah, so I'd write it out, and I would get it to Mark, or to Bill, and then they would orchestrate from that. They have that and the cassette, so you could hear. And then at one point, Bill was working on a movie.
If Looks Could Kill.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so you called me to do some takedown for you on that. Mm-hmm. And through that the Warner Brothers Library knew about me, and they called me up to do that for Kamen.
When I started with Bill, as you did, we were just getting started, and we were still at the point of, are we going to make are we going to be able to support ourselves doing this? Or are we going to have to go pump gas? But this is back when people pumped gas. And I remember having similar kinds of reactions. I showed up, I was nervous as hell to be there. And here's this guy who sits down, pulls up the picture and goes, okay, this is the cue, and just plays it. I go, where's the music? And then it's like, it was pretty daunting, to say the least.
Well, we probably all know people that have attempted to do that, and even people that I've orchestrated for, who have attempted to do that, and they'll play it, and it'll be like 20% of what the cue is going to be, and they'll say, well, you know what I want, right? Okay, here, and the amount of work that it would take to get it to where it was what the composer had in their head, was enormous. And there were composers whose sketches were just thoroughly complete. Just there was, and you felt like, I remember thinking, if I added a staccato mark on one note, I felt like I was really contributing. When it came time for your recording sessions, I was very excited. I couldn't wait to hear this because, you get attached to, the music that you spend a lot of time on, more so than a composer who I was basically just, kind of a copyist for. I mean, I was always very concerned that, the work was done right and everything. But as far as the emotional connection to the music, there were composers who tried to hide, what we did. You were never like that.
No.
Never at all.
You invited us to the sessions, and if the cue was great, you would go, that guy right over there, that was great. And at that time, Mark's right, there were a lot of people who, at least we ran into some of the same ones who, wanted your efforts but didn't want to acknowledge your contribution. And
I know I've seen you when you do your concerts, Bill, where you'll take a fragment of a theme from somebody in the audience, and you'll play, and then you'll expand it.
Yeah,
and
the
I think that
three-note
was
thing. Yeah,
I thought it was when I saw that, I remember thinking, well, that's similar to what you would do, with your thematic material from a.
Right. So that three-note thing evolved out of my occasionally doing a live performance and just creating a piece on the spot and having people say, well, what was that? And then I'd say, oh, I just created it. And there were a lot of skeptical looks. So I started asking people to, please pick 3 random notes and I'll create a piece.
What makes a good day and what makes a bad day? When you're, I mean, I'm sure there are days when the material flows faster than the others.
If I'm sitting by myself, it takes me longer, much longer. I'm much better off if there's at least one person in the room. I like playing to an audience. I'm more creative than if I'm just sitting by myself. Of course, I do okay by myself if I have to. But what's really interesting to me is that my friend Bernard Hiller, who does two wonderful acting coach, and he does master classes twice a year with international students. So they come for 6 days, and they'll come over on a Thursday. They start on the Monday with him, and they come over Thursday night, 15, 20, 25 of them. So 5 or 6 will pick 3 notes. And at the end of the evening, I got 40, 45, maybe 50 minutes of terrific music. And what's really interesting to me is that whoever picks the 3 notes has an emotional reaction to the piece. I mean, tears or, oh my goodness, it's taking me back to my childhood. And when I first started getting these reactions, this was, very strange to me. But over the years, it's a pattern. It's something that's beyond my comprehension. There is some kind of emotional connectivity that's going on that's beyond what I know. But for me, it's a very good way to get material very quickly. And in 2014, I did this album, Soul of an Actor, where 16 famous actors, Mel Brooks, Carl Reiner, Philip Seymour Hoffman, the late Theo Bickel, etc., picked 3 notes, did pieces. Although Philip Seymour Hoffman's was posthumous. He passed away, and I went to see his last film and came back inspired and sat down and played. So I don't know, the inspiration, who knows where it comes from, but it's like we all speak the language, right, effortlessly. And essentially we all speak a musical language also.
Do you find it more rewarding, the work in film and TV, or your concert works?
Look, finishing a film score under great duress, getting up in front of an orchestra and conducting it, we all had that experience. It's a fabulous experience. My most off-perform concert work I wrote when I was 25, and that's when I was composer in residence for the United States Army Band, and they commissioned me to write a trombone concerto, which is now available in 4 editions from Edition Peters. I had 3 months to write a piece that was 11 and a half minutes long. And I spent a month thinking about it. Couldn't get started for the guy who does instant composition. I couldn't get started. I had to go to New York City, take a lesson from one of my composition professors, and I drove up from Washington, showed Ludmila this page with all these ideas. She said, "You have enough ideas on this page to write 10 pieces of music. Just get started with one." So I came back and got started, and it's.
I've often felt that the hardest thing with starting a concert work with no other external inspiration, the hardest thing is to start it. And the next hardest thing is to stop it, and that we are we hate them and yet we love them. The deadlines. Yep. And the time restraints, as well as the timing within the picture, dictates to us so much of what we're supposed to do. But when we start with a blank sheet of paper or a blank computer screen, it's like, okay, dazzle me.
Well, I think Stravinsky said you have to put your own parameters down. You have to put your own limits down and decide what structure you're working in when you're doing composition. And if I'm doing composition in real time, you just have a feeling of when it's time to wrap it up.